Chiefs are back-to-back AFC champions. The trophy stays here. And yes, that was the second consecutive AFC championship as the Chiefs were able to beat the Buffalo Bills. And for years, waiting to win the Lamar Hunt Trophy as the AFC champion, the Chiefs get it done in back-to-back years, playing in back-to-back Super Bowls and, of course, winning Super Bowl 54. Hi, everybody. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with Chiefs reporter Matt McMullen. Now, wait a minute. I'm kind of invading your space here. This is the Breakdown Podcast with Matt McMullen.
So it's the Breakdown, which the Breakdown is normally me at my desk here at One Arrowhead Drive after a Chiefs game with a pot of coffee at 2 a.m, yelling into my microphone about whatever happened. But the beauty of it is usually you're kind of my co-host on the show because I weave your radio calls into the show. It's basically just a recap of the game. So you're on the podcast generally, but so you should be on there. It shouldn't just be my name. But when you have an opportunity to have Voice of the Chiefs host your podcast, I was like, yeah, let's do that. My job's easy. I'm just going to talk about the schedule.
I just feel honored to be even sitting here like this and not just using my audio. But that coffee buzz you have at 2 a.m, we've got it right now because we have just seen the release of the 2021 Kansas City Chiefs schedule as well as the rest of the National Football League. There it is. Mm-hmm. You waited for it for months, and here it is, a 17-game regular season schedule. But when you look at it, to me, in anticipation of it, I tweeted out earlier today, this is really one of the most intriguing, interesting, and awesome schedules, I think, in the 62-year history of this franchise.
It's exciting because there's really not a bad game on this schedule.
No.
I mean, the Chiefs are playing 7 playoff teams from a year ago. The division's getting more competitive. It should be a blast. And when you have a team like the Chiefs, which you go into every single game expecting to win, when you're playing good competition like this, good young quarterbacks, good storylines, it should be a lot of fun. So let's break it down.
Let's do it. Let's jump right into September. Okay, and looking at, you start with the divisional playoff victor, the Chiefs beating the Cleveland Browns, and that's the way this thing is going to start with a home opener on the September the 12th weekend. And as you look at September, it is the first time since 2016 the Chiefs will actually have 2 September home games. And many times they've been the last team to get a home game to start the year, but 2 out of the 3. And the Ravens game gets your attention, Sunday Night Football. Chargers at home on September the 26th. And then to end the first quarter of the season, going into October, why not? Andy Reid goes back home for a second time, not back home, but back to his previous home against the Philadelphia Eagles for a noon start on October the 3rd. This is a replication of the 2013 victory of the Chiefs in Andy Reid's first year when they beat the Eagles in Philly.
Sure, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Seeing Coach Reid go back to Philly and win that game against the Eagles, part of that 9-0 start to Coach Reid's career in Kansas City. I want to focus on these first 3 games, though, and we'll break the schedule down here to make it more digestible, starting with these first 4. But I want to focus on these first 3 because it's a very interesting start to the season. Because you think about that Cleveland game, what an epic divisional victory over the Browns back last January. Kind of a weird thing. I'm pretty sure I burst a blood vessel in my eye during that game just from stress. I had like a little red dot in my eye after the fact, and I was like, I think that happened when Chad Henne converted that 4th down. But just awesome, incredible win. That ended the Browns season, and now here they are coming back to GEHA Field at Arrowhead for the first time since then. Should be a lot of fun. The Browns are a hungry team, but we know the Chiefs are quite hungry as well. Then that Ravens game. I mean, we get Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes 4.0, and the Ravens are always trying to be that team that knocks the Chiefs off. Lamar Jackson's lost just 7 regular season games in his career, 3 of them to the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs trying to keep that going, and they'll do it early on in the season on Sunday Night Football. Those 3 games, though, finishing with the Chargers at home, who a lot of people think will be better this season, that's a very competitive stretch. And to start the season with 3 games like that are against really good teams, playoff-caliber teams, if the Chiefs can get through that stretch unscathed, it's a beautiful start to the season.
So when I hear you talking, I think of the start fast, finish fast theme. So let's pick up the start fast. We know about Andy Reid's record after bye weeks. It's often quoted. But we don't see the discussion about how good he is in September. Since he has been the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid is 20-5 in September and only 2 home losses in 8 years in the month of September.
Wow.
And it just is a testimony to the way that we mentioned this many times, but April begets May, which begets June and the way he attacks the mini camps and the OTAs, gets them ready for training camp in St. Joe, and then also for the start of the regular season. But 25 in September gets your attention.
Many times teams with expectations crumble under expectations, and the Chiefs, the last several years, that's never happened. I mean, they get out of the gates firing right away. There was the one season they began 1-5, but since then it seems like every single year the Chiefs are 4-0, 5-0 to begin the season. And you're right, it's because of training camp and OTAs attacking every single day and getting better every single day, and that pays off in the early part of the season. This Cleveland Browns game is interesting because it's a similar scenario of what happened 2 years ago. The Chiefs come back and beat the Houston Texans in the divisional round of the playoffs. And we face off against them to open the season last year. You know, that Texans team is hungry coming in. They have a pretty good squad, made the playoffs the year before, and the Chiefs win convincingly. So hoping for similar results here. You know the Chiefs will be prepared. That's the beauty of this team.
Just me. I love the 2 September home games. Announce that every seat will be sold, and think how raucous that will be in September for those 2 games against the Browns and the Chargers at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Now let's go to the next month. And to me, this is the month of mystery, because when I looked at the schedule in 2021, my 2 reference points were, 1, the 8 years of Andy Reid as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, and the 3 years of Patrick Mahomes being the starting quarterback for the Chiefs, and again, starting that second lap. Now, October is interesting, and it goes right out of the gate with a Sunday Night Football home game against the Buffalo Bills.
Another postseason rematch with the Buffalo Bills, of course, who the Chiefs beat in the AFC Championship game last year. And this really kicks off a very physical stretch of games, in my opinion, if you look at the numbers here and look at these teams. Buffalo Bills at home, at the Washington Football Team, and then at the Tennessee Titans before coming back home and playing the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. Bills football team and Titans is a very physical stretch of football. So you think about the Bills, they've retained a lot of their roster from last year, one of the good up-and-coming teams in the NFL. And they also added some pass rushers early on in the draft with Boogie Basham from Wake Forest and Gregory Rousseau from Miami. Then the Washington Football Team, one of the best defensive lines in all of football. First-round picks everywhere. They added to their linebacker core in the draft with Jamin Davis. So that defense is very good, very physical. Then the Tennessee Titans. I mean, Derrick Henry, you know what they're going to do. They're going to play football like it's 1940 and run the ball 50 times. The nice thing about this Chiefs team, though, one emphasis area this entire offseason that we've talked a lot about is getting better in the trenches. And we've talked a lot about the offensive line, getting guys like Orlando Brown Jr., Joe Tooney getting stronger there, but also picking up a guy like Jaron Reed from the Seattle Seahawks on the defensive line, pairing him with Chris Jones. I think adding that physicality to the physicality that was already here previously to both the offensive and defensive lines will pay dividends in that 3-game stretch.
And to your point, looking back-to-back weeks, you're going to face Derrick Henry and, if he's healthy, Saquon Barkley in back-to-back weeks, speaking of physicality. But this is a month of mystery to me because, again, the reference point here would be the 3 years of Patrick Mahomes as starting quarterback. This has been the month where it's been the biggest challenge, meaning the Chiefs are 7-5 in the month of October with Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback. Remember, he was injured in 2019, but there was the 2 home losses back-to-back to the Colts and the Texans. So if you're looking, well, where do the Chiefs surge ahead? I mean, how do you improve on 14-2 and probably should have been 15-1? You look at the month of October, and if you can attack this month and have similar fruit to the month of September, who knows what could happen. But October's been a tough month, let's be honest.
It has. And one team that we'll face that we've mentioned is the Washington Football Team in this month. And I have a trivia question for you. We haven't talked about this. This is on the spot.
Chase Young being, wow.
Well, we're looking at the other side. We're looking at Ryan Fitzpatrick. How many teams has Ryan Fitzpatrick suited up for and started against the Chiefs? Do you know?
I'm thinking out loud here. So Jets, Titans, Dolphins. Did he start? He didn't start.
He didn't start that
one.
He
came in.
It would have been wild if he did.
Yeah, it would have been. So Jets and Titans, Bills.
Yep.
How many I got left?
Only one more.
One more.
It's a while ago.
It's okay. Help me out.
Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, I didn't even remember that game.
Neither did I. But 4 teams Ryan Fitzpatrick has started at quarterback for against the Chiefs. And if he's the starter for the football team in Week 6, that'll make it 5 teams. That's crazy.
Was that before or after the Great Depression?
Before.
I'm trying to. Okay.
Yeah.
Thought so. 1928, it's like the Roaring 20s. But so the mysterious month of October. But now we go to the next 3 games and the bye. And this, to me, looks like a really fun month in November.
Yeah.
With the Packers at home, and who knows what's going on there. Stay tuned. Then going to the Raiders for Sunday Night Football in a division game. And then the Cowboys at home. Keep in mind the last time the Cowboys were here, Andy Reid was against him in the first year in 2013. And the time before that was the game that never happened. It was the Chiefs dressed in the Dallas Texan uniforms of the old AFL, and it was a throwback game. The Chiefs against the Texans, the old Dallas Texans back. So this has been a game that's been a lot of fun. But when you look at these three games in the bye, what do you see?
The Raiders game is really intriguing to me. So the Raiders are an interesting team in general coming into this season, but look at their trends the last couple years. So 2019, they start really hot. They start 6-4, they finish 1-5. Then last season, they start 6-3, playing really good football, finish 2-5. The common denominator there is toward the middle of the season, they played the Chiefs in either the first or the second game where their slide began, and everything went downhill. And look at the schedule here. The Chiefs play the Raiders at Las Vegas on Sunday Night Football in Week 10. So this is the fourth year now for John Gruden for the Vegas Raiders and trying to put it all together. And they did some nice things last year. They beat the Chiefs early in the season. We have to say that. They also had a pretty good offense last season, averaged like 27 points per game. They were pretty good. And they made some additions on defense. So if they're trying to put it all together, this game will be super interesting because this is an opportunity for the Chiefs to go after the division crown yet again for a sixth straight division title and try to start another Raiders slide. So Week 10 will be really interesting. Of course, it's in prime time. I'm looking forward to that game.
And, Matt, to me, this point of the schedule for Andy Reid, especially in the last couple of years, is where he makes his statement. Let's go to 2019. The Chiefs were 6-4 after a loss to the Tennessee Titans. They have to win a game in Mexico City against a good Charger team that forged them on to a division championship and eventually getting a bye that led to the Super Bowl 54 championship. Last year, again, a challenge at the part of the season where all of a sudden now their backs are against the wall again. Could they get the one available bye in the AFC? They win at the Raiders in this same month, so you got a repeat of that game maybe, and then at Tampa Bay where they controlled and beat the Buccaneers. So this is a month where Andy Reid, when he needs to kind of plant the flag, so to speak, he does so emphatically in the month of November.
And it's a nice segue into the bye, which is Week 12, because he's always seemed to do that with a big win, like you mentioned, down in Mexico City against the Chargers or against the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. And then you go into the bye feeling pretty good. And that's the beauty of the bye here for the Chiefs is it's in Week 12. So I think when you look at the bye on its surface, it's kind of a bummer because you want the Chiefs to play every single week. But having a bye in Week 12 is a beautiful thing because essentially what it means is you can rest up for the home stretch of the campaign. Think of it this way. If the bye was in Week 5, for example. And
Live that life.
Back in 2016, I believe.
Yep.
And you have a team that goes to the Super Bowl. Before you get to that Super Bowl bye, the bye after the divisional round or after the championship round, you're playing 16 straight weeks with this now extra added regular season game. So having the bye in Week 12 is huge, and the Chiefs have had a lot of luck with that recently. Since 2017, they've had the bye in Week 10 or later. In 2017, it was Week 10. 2018, Week 12. 2019, Week 12. 2020, Week 10. Now Week 12 yet again. And the numbers back this up. Since 2017, they are 18-6 following the bye. In the last 2 years alone, 11-1 following the bye. Only loss when they sat everybody against the Chargers. The Chiefs don't lose after the bye, and when it's late in the year like this, you can rest up, get ready for the home stretch of the season, for the playoffs, and it's really worked out well recently, and I'm so excited it's Week 12 here again this year.
Full disclosure here, if you asked me to computer generate this schedule for the Chiefs, honestly, and I had to run 40,000 algorithms like they do in all of the programs, this is where I would put the bye.
Agreed.
And this is almost the way I would put the schedule out there.
Yeah.
This is just so well suited for the Chiefs. You alluded to it, but I think it's worth noting here. We think of the bye as a physical restoration, and it's for sure that. But the bye is also a mental and emotional restoration for the whole organization, but especially for the team to get ready. To me, it's like going to the Kansas Speedway and having a 4-tire change before you go to the last 5 or 6 laps of the race. And we have seen Andy Reid be the best coach in the NFL at utilizing the bye. But it's not just physical. There's a mental and emotional aspect, too.
There's absolutely a mental and an emotional aspect where a football season's hard. It's not just hard physically. It's hard on your mind. It's hard on your emotions. It's hard on everyone. It's hard on your family. And to have that break late in the year before things really crank up, it's just really beneficial. We've been so lucky with the bye over the last several years. I was preparing myself for like a Week 5 or Week 6 bye. When I saw the schedule, I was like, yep, I'll take that.
Love it. All right, let's go to December. And this has been a great month for Andy Reid as well. I'll get to that in a second. But look at this. 3 home games in December. The Denver Broncos game, noon start on December the 5th. Then the Raiders game at home, another noon start the week later. Then the short week, a December short week. We'll get into this in a second too, at the Chargers. So this is a tough duty. This is the biggest challenge to me on this whole schedule. And then the Steelers game on the 26th. There's 5 primetime games on the schedule. You can have 6. Don't you feel like there's a flex in here somewhere? And it could be the Steelers game on the 26th of December. So what do you see in December here, brother?
I think it definitely could be that Steelers game, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. But I think this 3-game stretch with the Broncos, Raiders, and then at the Chargers on Thursday Night Football, this could be the most critical stretch of the season, I think. And coming out of the bye, you're facing 3 divisional opponents. The NFL has made an effort of trying to make more divisional games later in the year, so we kind of expected that. But this is pretty incredible to have this many divisional games this late. The Chiefs will play the Chargers in Week 3, as we've noted. Then they won't play another divisional game until Week 10. So you're not seeing your divisional opponents at all until late in the year. And they're finishing up with 4 of their final 6 games against divisional opponents, and these 3 guys all in a row. So coming out of the bye, you want to make sure that you're playing your best football here. And that's the really nice thing about it, is historically the Chiefs are playing their best football at this time of year in December. And to have your most important games of the year, which are your divisional matchups at this point, is really nice. Now, the thing is, for some of these teams like the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, if they're going to try to make a run, if they're playing really good football early in the season, it's also a great opportunity for the Chiefs to reclaim their title, for lack of a better term, at that point in the year, because you have to play the Chiefs, and the championship to this division goes through GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. So it's a great opportunity for the Chiefs all around. I love having these 3 games in a row. Just got to make sure we take advantage.
It's never happened in the history of the AFC West to have a team win 6 consecutive division titles. Never happened. Chiefs have won 5. Tied with, you go back and look at the Raiders of the 70s or the Broncos under Peyton Manning with their quarterback. But remember, I talked about start fast, finish fast, Matt, and we talked about how good Andy Reid is in September at 20-5 as the Chiefs head coach.
Wow.
I'm going to lump in the few January games in here, not this year, but in the years under, or 8 years under Andy Reid. The Kansas City Chiefs are, get this, 25-5 to close out the regular season. That's unparalleled, too, in the National Football League. If there's a definition of start fast, finish fast, it's Andy Reid football.
Absolutely, and you want to finish the season the way you started. And to finish the season strong is what you want to do, and we've seen that. The year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they didn't lose a game after the bye week. And last year, they also didn't lose a game until they sat everybody. So you want to finish your season strong. You want to go into the postseason feeling good and playing your best football. And that's really the beauty of having these games at this point in the year, because you'll be a well-oiled machine at that point. There's no rust. You feel good. You know what you're doing as a football team. You know your identity. And that's what's really exciting if you're a Chiefs fan about these really important games late in the year.
Okay, what makes the 2021 season unique more than any of the other 101 prior years in the National Football League? It is the 2 games in January. Why? A regular season game being played on January the 9th. The Chiefs will close out with 2 January games on the road, at Cincinnati and at Denver. Now, keep in mind, it is a 17-game schedule. It wasn't that long ago that the playoffs would start on the first weekend of January. I mean, remember the game in Houston. Now you're playing a regular season game the second week of January. And what do you see here with these 2 games?
Well, so the Bengals, Joe Burrow, he's one of the exciting young quarterbacks in the AFC on the Cincinnati Bengals. So you kind of hope at this point in the year these games aren't meaning a whole lot to the Chiefs. You hope they've locked things up, which we've been fortunate enough to do that over the last couple years. But if Patrick Mahomes is playing and he's out there, that's a great quarterback matchup, the future of the AFC in a lot of ways. Patrick Mahomes, we know what he can do, and then Joe Burrow, still kind of figuring out what he can do. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some of his old buddies on that Bengals squad, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So that will be a fun matchup, I think. That's a team that's, they're rebuilding, but they have some pieces. They're exciting. And then the Broncos at Denver to close things out. The Broncos are kind of an enigma right now. We don't know who their quarterback is quite yet. I know all the Rodgers stuff is out there. That will be permeating throughout the summer, I'm sure. But the guys on the roster, Drew Lock, the local kid, did they give him another chance to see what he can do? Or is it Teddy Bridgewater? They just traded him from the Carolina Panthers. That team has a lot of talent, guys that are coming back off injury on both sides of the ball, guys like Von Miller, Cortland Sutton. But can they put it all together? That's what we need to figure out. So at that point, we'll know what kind of team the Broncos have. It could mean a lot. We'll see. But either way, when the Broncos are good, it's good for the division, I think. So we'll see if it means anything. But should be a fun matchup at Mile High.
And, Matt, when you mentioned these 2 January games, I jump back to what you said about October being physical. Think about what Brett Veach has done in a 3-month period of rebuilding the offensive line. Look at these 2 games, 2 cold weather games on January the 2nd and January 9 at Cincinnati and at Denver. The offensive line, which may have to help carry the day in October in that physical stretch, may have to do the same thing here in cold weather football on 2 road games.
Which we're so nerdy, but we're so excited about that because all we've been talking about the last several months is all the depth along the offensive line. I mean, who gets excited about depth along the offensive line? We do, and I know Chiefs Kingdom's getting very excited about that kind of thing. That's why you put so much effort and time, and Brett Veach and his staff are scouting all these offensive line prospects in the draft, getting a guy like Trey Smith late in the draft, and signing guys like Austin Blythe in the offseason, not just your big-name guys like Joe Tooney and trading for Orlando Brown Jr. It's to have depth at this point in the season. The football season, as I've said, is long, it's grueling, it's a grind. To have all the depth the Chiefs have right now along the offensive line and in the trenches is going to pay off in Week 18, that's for sure.
And my challenge continues to set up a fantasy league with offensive line having some kind of impact. If you're the first one to do it in the Chiefs Kingdom, I'll buy you lunch at a Hy-Vee Market Grill. Actually, Matt will split it with me.
Looking forward to it.
Do it. Figure it out, people. It's reality football. All right, let's have some fun here now as we close out the podcast and as we look at this 2021 schedule. And it has to do with, and I'm curious what everybody else is thinking here, but I want to ask you your favorite primetime matchup. As it stands right now, of the 17 regular season games, 5 are in prime time. Which one you like the best?
It's tough because there's so many good options here. I think I have to go Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. I'm probably stealing yours, and I'm sorry if I am. But that's going to be so much fun. I mean, the Bills are this team, as I mentioned. They're on the rise. They're doing some really good things, building their team, really built it over time. But the Chiefs have had their number. They had their number last season against Josh Allen, one of the better young quarterbacks in all of football. Beat him in Buffalo, then beat him here in Kansas City for the AFC title. You know they'll be hungry. We saw all those videos of Stephon Diggs watching the celebration. They'll be a hungry team. But the Chiefs are also hungry to show that they're still the top dog in the conference. So that game should be a lot of fun in primetime.
I know I gave you some weird verbal response when you said you stole my game. You didn't, actually.
Okay.
Because my favorite primetime game is the Thursday night game at the Chargers on December the 12th.
All right.
Why? I think it's the toughest challenge, as I alluded to earlier, for the Kansas City Chiefs on this whole schedule. To play a short week road game in December will challenge this team. And why I think it's my favorite game? I think Andy Reid will have them ready to go in a game that could be a showdown for the division.
And that leads into another question we're going to ask ourselves here. Is the best divisional matchup? I'm curious what you think. I know my answer because it ties into your point right there. That stretch of Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, the Chargers being on Thursday Night Football, is huge. I mentioned it's the most critical stretch of the season in my opinion. You want to go into that Chargers game feeling pretty good. So coming out of the bye, the best divisional matchup, the most important divisional matchup to me, kind of out there, but is that Broncos game at home in Week 13. Because you want to come out of the bye and beat the Broncos and feel pretty good about it, and that gets you rolling into the second half of the season and eventually leads to that Thursday night game. You don't want to come out of the bye not feeling good. So that Broncos game is my favorite divisional matchup. What's yours?
Mine is the week after, because you said the word rolling, and I loved it because the wheels on the bus go round and round. Look at the next game. The Raiders at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Emoji. Didn't the bus go round and round? At Arrowhead Stadium? GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium? Oh, bring him back in. Come on back into the friendly confines a bit. I am ready for that game right now, and to me, that's my favorite divisional matchup. Get the bus ready to not make a lap.
Well, and that's where having all the fans back is going to be a lot of fun, too. The fans are going to help us with that
How many bus driver things and signs are we going to see for that game?
I think quite a few, and it's going to be loud. And that's, not to get off track here, but that's the main thing I'm so looking forward to is the noise. Even the limited capacity crowds last year were super loud, which is crazy. We're not just saying that. It was super loud, but to have everybody back for some of these games, particularly that Raiders matchup, is going to be insane.
Yep. Now let's take a look at the best 3-game stretch on the schedule, in your opinion.
Okay, so I'm going to go a roundabout way here. I think the schedule comes down to 3 3-game stretches. The one I'm going to pick is not one of these. But the three important three-game stretches to me, the first 3 weeks of the year, very competitive stretch to start the season. I mentioned that Browns, Ravens, Chargers. Then week 5, 6, and 7, very physical stretch against the Bills, football team, and Titans. Then later on, the stretch we keep mentioning here, Broncos, Raiders, Chargers in weeks 13, 14, 15, critical divisional run there. But my favorite 3-week stretch of the season is going to be right in the middle. It's going to be week 9 through 11, Packers at home, at the Raiders on Sunday Night Football, and then the Cowboys at home. You mentioned it earlier. It just seems like a fun stretch of football, doesn't it? And particularly the Cowboys, so many injuries last season. I mean, Dak Prescott got hurt. It seemed like everyone got hurt on that team. Lots of injuries along the offensive line. But they have a lot of guys coming back. Got a lot of pieces on their defense. Local kid and Jabril Cox in their linebacking core now. So I think that'll be a fun team this year if they can put it all together. And it reminds me of Coach Reid's first ever game here in Kansas City when he was the head coach against the Cowboys way back in 2013. The Chiefs won that game, and I'm a very sentimental, nostalgic loser of a person who likes those kind of things a lot. And I was at that game way up in the stands. So I would love to beat the Cowboys yet again here.
Now this reminds me of our fantasy draft episodes where you got to pick, he picked Patrick Mahomes first. And everybody roasts me on Twitter because that pick started the whole thing of like, Matt's drilling him, man. He's drilling him. Because that's my same 3-game stretch.
So I stole one from you.
You did steal it from me. Green Bay at home, at Raiders, Dallas. You said it best.
It's perfect.
I can't say it anymore. It's too fun. Anytime they play the Packers, it brings back all the memories of the great games in the past. The Dallas game, stay away from Clark Hunt that whole week. Just give him lots of room, right? He's going to be fired up for it. And then, of course, at the Raiders in the game in Las Vegas. All right, I'm going to take this one, if you don't mind, and then
that's fair.
Just to keep it fair. And that is the favorite game of all the games on the schedule. You already alluded to it, but the Sunday night football game at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium against the Buffalo Bills. Why? You said yes, sentimental, harken back. I'm with you. You and I share that same trait, whether that's nerdy or weird or whatever. It takes me back to really the genesis of Arrowhead Stadium in the 1991 game against the Buffalo Bills when they were the best team in the AFC coming into Arrowhead, and they the Chiefs completely destroyed them because of the crowd. They were trying to run a no-huddle, silent count offense, and they were destroyed all night long. That is the game that many look to as the genesis point, the alpha point of what Arrowhead has become, GHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium has become today. Revisiting that, you're going to see tons of video hearkening back to that famous Monday Night Football game.
Here we are fired up in May, just talking about games that are months away. But that's the beauty of it, is we've been talking about this and we're fired up. The game that's a good one. I like that a lot, and I like the nostalgia there. The game that I'm fired up about is the Steelers game here at home. And it's week 16, and it's a game that I think a lot of us thought we'd get in the postseason last year because the Steelers started out so hot. I mean, they're undefeated for the first 3 quarters of the season. Then they kind of fell off toward the end and lost to the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. So we never saw them in the postseason, but that's just a fun matchup where you have Ben Roethlisberger, who's kind of the last remaining member of the old guard of quarterbacks in the AFC, because Brady's in the NFC now. Peyton Manning's gone. He's doing commercials somewhere. Phillip Rivers is gone. It's just Roethlisberger now in that old guard, and now the new guard of Patrick Mahomes is kind of taking over. Guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Mahomes leading that group. And Mahomes, if you remember, the only time he's faced off against Ben Roethlisberger was his technically his 3rd career game as a starter, but the 2nd game of that 2018 season. The Steelers didn't really know what to expect with Patrick Mahomes, and I wrote down his line in case you all forgot just how good he was. He, of course, I lose it here. Okay, 23 of 28 for 326 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And that was one of the games where Patrick Mahomes kind of introduced himself to the world, and everyone's like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Excited to see him again against the Steelers. And, the Steelers for so long were the thorn in the Chiefs' side, and for them to come here to our place, GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, I want to see Mahomes do that again.
I love it because the Steelers and Patriots, for the most part, had control of the AFC. Steelers really starting in the steel curtain days of the AFC, and we know what the Patriots did from 2001 on. That changed the last 3 years because your analogy of sitting down at the table, it's the kid, right? Deal me in. And they're like, who's the kid? And then he's taken the chips the last 3 years, particularly the last 2, in winning the AFC. Plus, he won it with a full house. There will be a full house the day after Christmas for that game against the Steelers because there could be a lot on the line. It's been fun, brother. The 2021 schedule is here. We now know we can attack it and see it. And so here we go. It's on for sure.
Here we go. And we've waited so long to get back to the football season. And the season last year didn't end the way we wanted to. We knew we could have won that Super Bowl in retrospect. And now we finally have the roadmap. We have the schedule. We know what teams we have to take on to get back to the Super Bowl next year. And that's what I'm so excited about. And looking at the schedule and breaking it down, I feel great about it. And it should be a lot of fun. It should be an awesome season. And I know the players are looking at this, and they're just itching to get out there and to prove that they're the best team in football.
He's Matt McMullen, Chiefs reporter. Yes, he is the creator of the Matt Stat and mini Matt Stats. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. Hey, stay with us because over the next, to get you ready for training camp, we'll be there we'll take a look at the OTAs, we'll look at the mini camps, because now we know the 21 season is in front of us. And just like Andy Reid, we're all going to get ready, and you can follow us every day right here to keep you updated.
And come join the podcast again. You're welcome anytime.
Good. I mean, I can have a face on here to go with the voice, but we got to change the graphics a little bit.
Yeah. Some duct tape or something.
Yeah, something. Great tape. Yeah. Anyway, it's good to be on here. It's fun. Let's go.